Hello, adventure seekers. Welcome back to another episode of Travel-Preneur. I'm your host, Megan McSwain, your guide to the exciting world of travel business. Today, we are embarking on a journey to the heart of Africa with Scott Brills, co-founder and owner of Pamoja Safaris, an award-winning safari and trekking company in Tanzania. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Hi, Megan. Thanks for having me.
For sure. Scott, can you share the story behind Pamoja Safari's inception and what inspired you to blend African wildlife passion with sustainable tourism?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in animals, and as far back as I can remember, I was one of those kids with all sorts of critters, everything from turtles and lizards to hamsters and guinea pigs and grabbing insects and stuff like that. Like I was super curious about that kind of thing. And in 2010, I had the opportunity to go to Africa for the first time with my father. It was in his bucket list to do an African safari. And so we went to Tanzania for about 2 weeks and did a group tour with a bunch of retired Americans and me. I had a great time. We had three different guides. I actually stayed a little bit longer to climb Kilimanjaro and do Zanzibar on my own. So I just did
Wow.
a bit of solo travel after that. Along the way, this is before smartphones were super popular. So I had my dumb phone and I was texting back and forth with one of our guides, Josh, and he was kind of helping me with the logistics and whatnot because bus tickets and how to get from here to here and whatnot and how much should a
Yeah.
taxi cost. So at the end of Kilimanjaro, my friend who had flown over from the UK to join me and myself, we were invited to his house to meet his wife and at that time 2 kids. And on the way there, I just remember saying, "You're really, really good at what you do. You're personable, you're funny, you're super knowledgeable. Have you ever thought about starting your own business up, doing your own safari company?" And he's like, "Well, not really. I was thinking about, doing some side ventures, but not necessarily that." And I said, "Well, hey, what if we try to do this? I know how to start and run businesses remotely. I'd already been doing like IT and web development for years. I love animals. I know your target market. You apparently know everything on the ground and you're really good at what you do. Let's give it a shot. And if it doesn't work out, it's basically just my time and effort into it because like I know how to make the website and I know how to do the
Mhm.
marketing and whatnot. It won't be really anything off your back." So he said, "Okay." And here we are almost 15 years later, and it's going great.
Wow. That's really cool because you seem to find him and he was probably a good fit for what you needed. And sometimes people are scared to start a business because they might not know the logistics of actually starting it. So when he found you, you guys seem to be a good fit. That's amazing.
To be fair, there's a lot of stuff that ignorance is bliss. Like, there's a lot of stuff we neither one of us knew, and maybe he thought like, "Oh, Scott definitely knows like this, and this," and I thought, "Well, he lives there and he's been doing this for like 15 years. He must know this."
Mhm.
But I'd never done business in another country. I'd never gotten into the travel and tourism game. I had no idea about the rules and regulations
Right.
in Tanzania. So like I had to learn a ton. He was a big help. We had a lot of trial and error over the years, and we
Mhm.
grew very, very slowly because I wanted to make sure we had everything kind of sussed out before we opened it up to a wider audience. But by the time it was 2014, 2015, we really started growing pretty quickly.
Cool. So with so many safari operators out there, how does Pamoja Safaris differentiate its safari experiences, especially in places like Serengeti and
We have a last count, and this is very unscientific. I just kind of like, I've got a notepad of all the different other tour companies I see every time I go over there. And I spend a few months
Mhm.
there a year. Somewhere around 500 different competitors in the same city, Arusha, Tanzania, that are all trying to do the same thing and draw from the same client pool and everything. So it's pretty nuts. There's a lot of
Wow.
competition. Luckily, most companies, I would say 95% of them, are where we were in 2010 to 2015, and a lot of them won't survive. They won't get that momentum. And I know because we were there. It was tough those first few years. We really focus on a few things to differentiate ourselves. The number one thing being people. So we really go to the utmost lengths to find and keep the very best people. And that's generally on the client side, like the guest side, that is the guide. So you're with your guide, your driver for a week, sometimes up to 2 weeks at a time. If this person isn't personable, if they don't
Right.
know the answers to the questions they're asking, it really, really affects the trip because you're
Sure.
just with this person all the time. And
Yeah.
yeah, you're still going to have fun because you're over there and you're in the Serengeti and you're seeing all the animals from the Lion King. And I know this because I've both been in this position and I've talked to a lot of people that have used other companies. It can be a very lucrative job. So there's a lot of competition to become a tour guide in Tanzania and throughout much of Africa where they do safaris. And so necessarily you have to go to like a college or something and learn about it and then go through training and whatnot. And so there's a ton of people out there that don't have a lot of experience and don't necessarily know the type of guests that they're with or how to interact with them. And it could be
Right.
that they're not really suited to the job, or it could just be that they need more time and more
Right.
experience. But all of our guides have 10 plus years of experience, fluent English. They've gone to college for wildlife management or a related field. They're personable. We try to look for people that are funny and
Yeah.
just like fun to be around. So our
Sure.
goal at the end of the trip is for our guests to say, we love the animals, we love being in Tanzania, but we loved our guide too. Like that's
Yeah.
super important for us.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. You're with them for a long period of time. So you kind of look to them for, of course, the things to do with the tour, but maybe just other things, other questions you might have about the
Mhm.
visit. And you want that person to be someone that you want to be around, like a friend or.
Right. It's so important. Also, one thing I didn't even mention was safety. So a lot of people that come
Or
with Pamoja safaris, it's their first time ever in Africa. Rightly so. Some people, you hear stuff on the news. A lot of people think Africa, kind of scary, don't know much about it. First time
right.
over there. They ask about security. So I tell them, everything's very secure. We're lucky. Tanzania is a pretty stable, democratic country. There's a lot of diversity in the population, but everyone, for the most part, gets along. As far as like crimes, it's crimes of opportunity, if any. We luckily haven't had anything happen to our guests, but it's leaving your wedding ring and then coming back and it's gone. Or if you're in a big city, like outside of the safari circuit, and someone gets pickpocketed, it's stuff like that. But the biggest thing is security in the field. So you have to know the animals and the different things that they do, whether it's putting down their ears or looking in a certain
Yeah.
direction or whatnot, for two reasons. One is so you know what they're going to do next. You position yourself so you're able to get a good view and good photos and everything, but also for security reasons. So if
Stay
an
safe,
elephant comes
right?
over to you, yeah, like elephants can sometimes get as close as you can almost touch them, maybe 5, 6 feet, 2 meters
Wow.
away. You have to know what that elephant's doing. Now, I'm still learning personally. I'm not nearly as good as any of our guides, but they'll have little things happen. They'll flick their
Hmm.
ear or something like that, and then they got to be like, okay, we have to back up. We have to rev the
Right.
engine and let them know, like, hey, we're not any harm. Back up or go somewhere else or whatnot. A super important thing for your guide to know how
That's
to do
pretty
and what signs
important
to
for
look for.
sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And then to a lesser extent, how we differentiate ourselves, we really high-end vehicles. So most companies use Toyota Land Cruisers. We make sure that ours are serviced after every trip. We want to make sure you don't break down. We'll always
Right.
be on trips and we'll see cars broken down, and sometimes it takes hours or people have to get picked up by another company. And sometimes you can't help that. Like, hey, you get a
Hmm.
random flat and you have to fix it. It happens. But a lot of times companies just don't put the time and effort and money into servicing their vehicles, making sure that they're going to last on those really bumpy roads. That's important too. And then lastly, it comes to our partnerships with some of the best lodging in Tanzania.
Hmm.
We've personally gone, the leadership team, myself, Josh, and some others, and stayed at these places. And we see, okay, how is the service? How is the food? I'm a big foodie. I actually have another company that does culinary tours to Japan. And
Oh,
so, like,
wow.
we go somewhere and everything's great, looks beautiful, service is decent, but what is this? This food isn't very good. It's because the company generally they're not willing to pay a decent salary for someone to be there, a head chef, and to keep that person. And that's
Right.
something that we take very seriously because if the staff, whether it's the chef or anybody else, isn't paid well, you could tell. They're just not happy. They're not smiling,
Yeah.
and guests will feel that energy. I feel it. So
Right.
we want to make sure that everyone that we work with, whether it's the staff at the lodges we visit or guides, everyone is paid a decent wage. That's why we
Compensated
include
well. Yeah.
base gratuity on all of our trips. And we say, hey, everyone's being paid well. They're paying above market rate. You can bring some money and tip anybody that goes above and beyond if you'd like to, but don't worry about it. It's not needed. We've
Right.
got everyone. Yeah.
That's huge, especially in this day and age where tipping culture has become such a thing, and people, talk about it because they're like, are these people getting paid fairly, or am I paying their wages because I'm tipping, so
Yeah, and I know that from being there too. Like I was in that situation where I was on Kilimanjaro and I was like, okay, how many bills of what denominations and how many envelopes do I bring and how much do I give to each
right,
person? It detracts from your experience. It really does. Like having to
definitely,
worry
yeah,
about that and having all this cash on you and forgetting it somewhere or getting it stolen. Or, we found that it really detracts. And so that's
it
why
does.
we do it in the way we do. We started that in 2017.
This episode is brought to you by Travel-Payments.com. Travel businesses have unique needs when it comes to credit card processing. From large average ticket sizes and tolerance for higher chargeback ratios to simple integrations with the most popular shopping cart systems, the travel industry specialists at Travel-Payments.com have you covered. Unfortunately, many of the most popular credit card processors initially accept travel businesses, but without warning, freeze their merchant accounts and the thousands of dollars in them because these service providers don't understand or support the unique needs of travel industry business. Don't get stuck with one of the big guys who will freeze you out without a moment's notice. Instead, work with the travel industry specialist who will support your business every step of the way. Visit travelpayments.com to get a free quote today.
Can you share a particularly unforgettable safari experience that kind of encapsulates what Pamoja Safaris offers?
So it's funny. I get asked all the time because I go over there and I spend months there and I do multiple safaris a year with some of our groups, a friends and family trip and whatnot. And people like you do like pretty much the same circuit when you go over there every time, which is the northern circuit. So you do Tarangire National Park, Ngorongoro Crater, Serengeti National Park. These parks are so huge. Serengeti's the size of Connecticut in the U.S. and stuff is always changing, whether it's due to the weather or the migration patterns or availability of food. Every single time I go on a trip, something new and amazing happens. Usually not just one thing, but multiple things. And people are like,
Wow.
"Oh, sure, you say that to every group, like, oh yeah, okay." But I'm like, no, like for real, like this has never happened before. And I was just over there in November, December. I must have said that 6, 8 times for sure. So many cool things happen, like whether it's a cheetah jumping on the vehicles, which is discouraged nowadays, but it happened a few years in the past, multiple times where you're just there and a
Wow.
cheetah is trying to get a better view. And so it jumps on the back of your vehicle and then jumps on the top and it's just kind of like scanning around, looking for predators, looking for prey. It freaks people out. It freaked me out the first time it happened, but they're not aggressive. If this happened with like a lion or a leopard, you don't want that. But with a cheetah,
Right.
like they're just there to get a look and they'll look at you and they'll look inside the car and they'll be like, okay, people,
Right.
we're not going after
Oh,
people.
interesting.
That's super cool. And like I
Yeah.
said, we'll have elephants coming super close all the time. One time in Ngorongoro Crater, there were some rhinos. Rhinos are very skittish, by the way. They're afraid to cross the road because there were so many vehicles lined up trying to take pictures of them. So the rangers are like, they're getting dehydrated. We need to chase them to the water source so they can have a drink. So what they did is they got into a Land Rover and they just literally chased this pair of rhinos around. And the rest of us are just following them, going top speed down the road, just trying to to see where they're going to go. But it was just a lot of adventure. This last time it was really rainy and muddy, which is it's not usual in November. El Nino kind of thing. It changed rain patterns.
Hmm.
And so we helped multiple vehicles get unstuck. We got stuck ourselves a couple of times, which never happens. It was just that muddy. But luckily, we use V8 Land Cruisers instead of the V6s that most companies use, and so we got the power
Hmm.
to get through that. But it made for some interesting time, and sometimes like we'll go through something I'm like, oh man, this happened one time. I hope we don't get stuck, and we got stuck. And I'm like, oh no, this is going to ruin everyone's day. Like it's lunchtime, and everyone's going to get hungry and whatnot. So we had 2 vehicles and the other one helped pull us out. But at the end, everyone's like, wow, like that was such a cool experience. I was like, yeah, I've never walked on the floor of Ngorongoro Crater. It's not allowed. And this is the only time this has ever happened. They're like, yeah, that was actually pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah, I imagine it's just unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. So sustainability is a key focus for Pamoja Safaris. How do you ensure your operations support and enrich the local communities and environment in Tanzania?
So many ways. Name a few things off the top of my head. We support multiple nonprofits that are operating in Arusha and then outside of Arusha. One of them is the home for albino children, and albinos
Mhm.
are really discriminated against in Tanzania and many parts of Africa, unfortunately. So there is a nun that takes in these children from all over the region and they kind of live there and they're in a safe place and
Mhm.
teaches them how to do handicrafts. And then there's some money coming in and we support that. There's a clean water conservation that makes clay filters with silver flecks inside of them. And we distribute those all over the country as well for a cost of about $50 a pop. And we take our guests there so that they learn about it and they can make a donation as well. And then after they leave, we'll donate them and we'll send them pictures of the people we're giving them to.
Cool.
We
Cool.
support a few orphanages and schools. There's a school in Karatu near Ngorongoro Crater that we have worked with for a few years, primarily a girls' school. And so we help out a few of our former guests that are donating for their school supplies, their uniforms. Schooling up to a certain point is free in Tanzania, but you have to have the money to pay for the items you need for school, like the uniforms and the books and whatnot,
Right.
and the pencils and the notepads. So if you don't have that, and sometimes children don't, they can't go to school. They're not allowed to go to school. So we make
Gosh.
sure that these people are able to go. We definitely focus on young girls being able to do that. And we've gotten rid of, to the most part, plastic water bottle usage. That was a big thing, just seeing all the plastic water bottles thrown away every day. So now we
Yeah.
provide everyone with their own water bottle, reusable water bottle, and we have water jugs to fill it up with. We work with the Hadzabe community, conserving their land. It's the last hunter-gatherer in East Africa, last hunter-gatherer tribe, between 500 and 1,000 individuals left living their nomadic ways and hunting with bows and
Wow.
arrows. And we take a select few guests there every year and see how they live their life and go hunting with them and everything. So yeah, whenever we find an opportunity, we try to give back because we're in a unique position, my partner and I, and then our company, to be able to do that. And me is not a Tanzanian, but being in Tanzania and using their natural resources to make a living, I feel like it's my duty to do that.
And this is all, of course, showcased to your clients that you're kind of promoting awareness and responsible tourism. And you said the reusable water bottles and the other ways that you do it. I'm sure that's kind of a perk for the client to know that they're going on a tour with someone who's very aware of that and those things.
We have some people too, based on podcasts I've been on or what we've written about in articles, that say, hey, like, I really like your method of doing business. We really appreciate that you're empowering people and you care about the communities and the natural resources of the place you do business in. And because of that, we've chosen to go with you guys.
So looking ahead, what new adventures or expansions are in store for Pamoja Safaris?
We're hiring more guides, including female guides, which are very, very rare to find in Tanzania.
Do people request like male or female? I mean, does that happen?
We haven't had that happen yet, but I think it's because it hasn't just really reached a point where that's available. There's so few women guides. A lot of it's just social and it's just the culture and whatnot, but we're available to help them further their goals and their careers if they so choose to. Still very normal for women to get married in the late teens, early 20s, start having kids, so they're kind of removed from the labor market. But it's slowly changing, just like in a lot of traditional societies. So we want to encourage that for anybody who feels they want to get into this type of work. Also, we're starting to do more and more chimpanzee trekking, which is really cool. We actually go, among other places, to where Jane Goodall did her research in Western Tanzania. And you can actually camp and go out trekking on foot and hang out with these chimpanzee families, which is really neat. My partner and I went there to try out a spot, first time together in 2021, and we were both just blown away. The experience, the lodge, the food, the service, we were just like, wow, wow, wow. And we were lucky because it was still like COVID days, and so we were just doing some research on our own, and we were the only ones there. And so we kind of had run of the whole property.
So reflecting on your journey, what has been the most rewarding aspect of running Pamoja Safaris, and how do you envision its role in the future?
I'm super thankful to be able to make a living out of doing what I've always loved. This is nothing I had a dream to do. I never thought, like, growing up, I'd like own a safari company and work at a zoo or something like that. I think it was great timing where at that time I was kind of like getting burnt out by web development and IT, and I was looking for something different. And just the fact that I had that experience and met him changed my life.
Wow.
So very happy that I had that experience and that I continue to be able to make a living, help my partner make a living, help all of our guides make a living, and all the people that we do business with at the lodge, because it's a big ecosystem. Makes up a decent chunk of Tanzania's GDP is tourism. That ecosystem, like, it ranges pretty far. And I know, like, when I'm over there and I go for a walk and people are just like, hey, Scott, like people know me in the community and they know us as
Yeah.
a fair company that pays well and
Yeah.
treats our people well and that we really care about that. And that's really cool because sometimes I don't even know who that person is. They know
Yeah.
me. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to keep building the company and expanding our offerings and seeing how much more good we can do in the country.
Good luck to you. And thank you so much for sharing your journey. And I mean, when you mentioned you liked working with animals, I mean, you really work with animals, chimpanzees,
Right.
rhinos, cheetahs. I mean, it really is like Lion King come true. So
The
amazing.
only thing is I can't take these ones home for pets, like I don't have an
Yeah.
aquarium big enough. So yeah.
If only, right? Wouldn't that be fun? Well, let our listeners know where they can learn more about Pamoja Safaris and where they can connect with you.
Yeah, so we're at Pamoja Safaris, all the social media, Pamoja Safaris, Pamoja, or pamojasafaris.com. We're currently redoing the website, so hopefully everything will be up and in place very soon. We have a really cool promo video that maybe you can link to, or you can just search on YouTube for Pamoja Safaris promo video. It's a nice 2-minute encapsulation of everything we do, and it'll get you fired up and wanting to do safari for sure.
Well, to our listeners, we hope this episode has ignited your passion for sustainable adventure. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to Travel-Preneur for more episodes. Thank you so much, Scott. We hope to talk to you again soon.
Thanks,
Take
Megan.
care.
Thanks for having me.